25 on homework 2.5, right? All we're going to do is break this down. Okay? Solve it. Do the opposite. Sad math. Ladder problem. I don't care how you want to think of it. But I like to think whenever you see a fraction, right? Remember we were talking at the beginning of the year with the fractions, and we should always multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? That's why we flip them. Instead of dividing by a fraction, remember when you have x is the opposite, when you're doing a horizontal stretch, x is the opposite, so we divide by 2/3, right? Instead of dividing by 2/3, we multiply by 3/2, right? Same thing here. Instead of dividing by a half, right, it's just easier to multiply by the reciprocal. What I do to one side, I do to the other, and so I'm left with x squared is equal to negative 64. Now, we all know the square root of 64 is 8, right? Would it be positive? No problem. Alright, so if you know that the square root of 64 is 8, you don't have to go through the steps. I get it. The whole point here is we take the square root, it's plus or minus, right? So I'm going to get x is equal to plus or minus 8i. I mean, it should really be that simple. Okay? But just in case you don't see where that came from, we're taking the negative 64, right? And we're pulling out the I. And then we have 64. And then we're going to break 64 down. 2 is 32. 2 is 16. 2 is 8. 2 is 4. 2 is 2. 2 is 1. And if you need to do all these steps, then you do them. Okay? And now you're going to circle your pairs. You can circle the I because you know that's coming out. And then your pairs. 1, 2, 3. That means I have 1, 2, 3 2's multiplying against each other. And an I. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So I get 8i. And that's how I come up with 8i. We all on the same page? Okay? This problem, 27, they're saying what values for x and what values for y. And I'm looking at it going, well, when you have two variables, you need two equations. And it doesn't give you two equations, it gives you one equation. It's frustrating to me. But then I look at it and I'm like, oh, I see what they're saying. All they're saying is this should be hooked up with this. And this should be hooked up with this. So in other words, what does 5 have to multiply against in order to get negative 20? What do I multiply 5 to get negative 20? So if you want, you can go, okay, 5 times x minus 1 is equal to negative 20, and then solve. Right? So you get divide by 5, we get x minus 1 is equal to negative 4. I add 1 to both sides. Right? And so x has to be negative 3. Okay? If x is negative 3, this becomes negative 4. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, right? The other step is then 3yi needs to equal negative 15i. So what do I got to multiply 3 to get negative 15? Or negative 5, right? But you can, again, do the steps. divide this by 3i if you like, right? And then divide this by 3i, and you get y is equal to, the i's cancel, -5. And so y has to be -5, and x has to be -3 for this to turn into this, for this equation to be valid.
So we can divide by that side of the parentheses.
Oh yeah, because remember, I mean, you can multiply it through, make it more difficult for yourself, but remember, this is 5 times all of this, so what's the opposite of 5 times all of this? Divide by 5, right? It's a good question. Now some people will distribute the 5, and then you're going to subtract, or you're going to add 5, then divide by 5, but either way you want to do it. Because when you add 5 to -20, you're still going to come up with -15, and when you divide by 5, you still come up with -3. Does that make sense? So, either way.